So I just want to get into the global grants directly here. So the first question is, what is a global grant? And the global grants are the larger projects, simply put. They typically involve two parties, if you'd like to say it that way. So there is a host Rotary Club somewhere in the world, could be Canada, but generally in our case, they're international clubs. The host club will seek a partnership with an international club, and in this case, the clubs in the district are usually are considered the international partner. So we've got us as the international partner, working with a local host Rotary Club on a global grant to support large international activities with sustainable, measurable outcomes that do align with the Rotary areas of focus. They need to speak to real community needs. And usually, in fact, always the way that this is established is really through the conducting of a community needs assessment up front to make sure that everything that we would want to do is in fact relevant and makes sense in the host country. So, uh, to me, global grants are simply the best tool we have as Rotarians to leverage funds and expertise to make significant impacts for good in the world. Once we factor out some of the other things like the scholarships and the peace centers in 26, 27, I think this number is actually a little bit low, but we've basically contributed well over $150,000 US to global grants. I actually think that number is quite low. For us as the international partner in an organization in organizing a global grant, we kind of recognize two broad categories of grants. There's the lead club grant and the sporting club grant. So although I said that there's typically two partners, there can in fact be many, many more. So if we have a host club somewhere in the world that has developed an idea for a project and is looking for partners, we can actually have multiple international partners. We can, in fact, have multiple clubs from our district contributing as the international partner on the grant. In this case, one club will be designated as the lead club, and any number of clubs can be designated as supporting clubs on the grant. We can, in fact, be the supporting club on on a project where the lead club is not even in our district. That is certainly allowed. We can also solicit participation from clubs to support us from outside the district. We don't necessarily match the DDF, but the global grant project can be assembled that way. Much as we have done with the district project grants, we typically ask you to rank your projects based on a priority ranking where you tell us the P1, the P2, the P3, and so forth. And we will begin looking at grant applications on the date that you see, the March 15th date on the screen. So clubs are certainly welcome to begin assembling their applications in advance of that date. And we encourage this, but because these are typically processed on a first come, first serve type basis based on the fact that the applications are complete, we sort of acknowledge that anything that has come in prior to the March 15th deadline will be looked at as if it came in on March 15th. So you can't, in effect, jump ahead of other projects by submitting early. We start looking at them all on the same date. Just want to draw attention to the fact that on the RI website, there are all kinds of tools available to help project proponents get information on the global grants. But more significantly than that, there are the people in the district who are really the experts in a lot of this. So I'll draw attention, first of all, to our DISC, Barb Young, fantastic resource with all kinds of knowledge on the way global grants work. We see the District Resource Network, some of the people that Barb mentioned in her presentation earlier. And just people in your various Rotary clubs who have done these projects before. There's lots of help available for people who are doing this for the first time. The global grants, though, do have a lot of moving parts. So typically, what we do is we say we recommend you start by opening up an application on the global grants, or this actually it's now called the Service Projects website on the RI website. So that's where the global grant application itself is actually assembled on the RI Service Projects website. One of the things that you will do first is you will obtain a global grant number for your grant. Then, as you're looking to put your grant together, you can approach the district grant subcommittee here in 5360 to ask for district designated funds to be added to the funding model of your global grant. So that's typically step two. Once you have an approval from us that we're going to allocate some of our pool of district designated funds to your project, you can then proceed to complete your project on the RI website, on the Service Projects website, and complete your application that way. Make sure when you're putting your project budget together that you include the DDF that we've awarded as part of your overall financing model on the grant. So the basic elements of a global grant, you'll be looking for partners for sure. We talked a little bit, or I spoke a little bit earlier about finding a host club somewhere for your international project. Doing the needs assessment. This is now a mandatory element. And make sure that you have significant communication going back and forth between the various Rotary clubs, between the international partner or partners and the host club that you're dealing with overseas. Success depends on all of the participants in the project collaborating fully on all of this. The RI website does have a number of elements to it. Things that you know, if you follow, you can be assured of having a greater level of success than if you don't. But the main steps to building a sustainable global grant project really involve working very closely with the community, working with local providers of services, providing the training, buying local where possible, finding local funding as well, and doing the measurements, the metrics of your success. Very, very high level stuff, but these are kind of the main elements in terms of what makes a successful global project. When authorizing the DDF addition to your project, we do look at a couple of things. First of all, we expect to see a significant training component in the project. This is very much the case that we saw with the district project grants, where we say you must involve the participation of Rotarians. It's more than just going out and buying stuff. It's an active collaboration between all the parties involved, between all the international clubs, the host club, and all of the partners of the host club in country. Touched on it already, the project must have measurable objectives. They can't be just a hodgepodge of activities. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. It doesn't really hold together in any kind of a cogent way. It really needs to be a well thought out strategy and plan. And we must, and this is very important, align with the one, preferably, of the one of the 7 areas of focus that Rotary has identified. And for reference, you actually see those on the slide here. They involve the water, sanitation, right through to the newest one, which is the environment. So in terms of a global grant, and just sort of jumping as quickly as I can here into some of the rules, what we expect to see is that all of the clubs and all of the districts that are involved in the global grant, which include the international partners, us in 5360, as well as the host and country club and district, everybody must be qualified. And what does that mean? It means, amongst other things, you've got the MOU, the financial management plan, you've attended the grant seminar, all the things that we've been talking about here today. For a global grant, And remember, all global grant activities are actually enumerated in US dollars. So the minimum size for a global grant is $30,000 US. There is matching available. You start with the club contribution, and I'll get into what we call the Rotary math in a little bit here. But the club contribution gets matched through the district DDF, and everything is ultimately matched 80% from the World Fund of Rotary International. The minimum size of a global grant is $30,000 US. The maximum size of a global grant is $400,000. As I said before, we're usually looking at multiple countries. More often than not, the host project is in another country, not Canada, although Canada is possible. Project can really take place anywhere, and most of the time in our district, we see ourselves as the international project, the international partner, the one that is going overseas somewhere to execute the project. There is a note here that 15% of the project funding must come from outside of the host country. And as we review the district project grants, that is in fact one of the things that we look at. So our DDF allocations are going to be this year the same as last year, so no change there. So I think there's an error on the slide. I thought I fixed it. Anyways, when we look at the clubs, we see that the lead club can apply for a maximum of $19,000 in district designated funds. So for the lead club, the first $4,000 matched. I didn't quite say that right. I'll say it again. So the first $4,000 matched will give you $15,000 US in DDF. And then from 4,001 up to $15,000, that dollar gets matched 1-to-1. This is the same as last year. So we actually have, in fact, the maximum reasonable amount of club contribution is $19,000 that'll get matched to $30,000. The slide says 2 applications per club. That's actually an error. It's 3. I will correct that. And then we go from there. So I've got a couple of examples here of how this could all look. This is what we refer to as the Rotary math that really demonstrates the power of leveraging. So this is the simplest scenario of all. Basically, a single club applying for a district designated grant or district designated fund to apply to a global grant. So your club makes the minimum contribution of $4,000. That will match the lead club DDF will match $15,000. Then total will get matched by the Rotary Foundation with an 80% World Fund match to $12,000. So your $4,000 club contribution turns into a $31,000 global grant. You recall that 30,000 is the minimum, so this kind of takes you just over the minimum for the global grant match. If you make additional contributions, so we'll have a look at this next slide here. So your club has decided to make a contribution of $9,000. So the first $4,000 gets matched to $5,000. Then the incremental $4,000, sorry, the incremental $5,000 that your club has made. So the first 4,000 gets matched to $15,000. The additional $5,000 you matched gets matched on a 1-to-1 basis. Then that whole thing gets matched by the World Fund, takes you to a project budget of about $45,000. This is an answer to the question that I think I saw from Lori Foran from my own club or in the chat earlier about the vocational training team. And that is if you add a VTT component to your global grant, there's an additional match available for that. So the VTT, as Ola had mentioned earlier in his part of the presentation, is used to take a team of professionals to a location to teach local professionals. So you can start with the $9,000 that your club contributes. The first $4,000 will be matched 5,000. The VTT will add 5,000. Then your additional contribution will be matched $15,000. The World Fund matches $20,000. So a project of that nature can look like a $54,000 global grant. Supporting clubs can also apply for DDF against a project for which another club is the lead club, and these are pretty simple. What we see here is $2,000 US from the club gets matched to an additional $3,000 in DDF. Apologize, there's another error on the slide, which I will fix. It's not 2 applications per club, it's 3. So there's 3 clubs matched. Yeah, three applications. Let me say that again. A club can apply for up to 3 supporting global grants, same as it is this year. So we can have a quick look at how this looks. So if your club is the supporting club on a global grant, your club can contribute to $2,000. That will be matched 5,000. Again, you got the Rotary Foundation's 80% World Fund match leads to a supporting grant of up to $11,000. Trying to show here a little bit how this gets multiplied. So if you now got 2 Rotary clubs uh, applying against the lead club, so the lead club is contributing its minimum of $4,000. Each of 2 clubs contributes $2,000. You get the DDF match, and you get the TRF match on top of that for a project that looks like $53,000. Another example looks like a lead club uh, making an additional contribution. We've got 2 supporting clubs. We've got a VTT involved here. This all combines together to produce a project that's about $76,000 worth of DDF. So lesson here is really not so much in what the specific details of any situation is. It's really more just to sort of give you a sense of how by combining a club minimum contribution with additional contributions, finding supporting clubs, adding a VTT, the Rotary math really can compound and produce a fairly significant global grant. That way, there are people in our district who have lots of experience in putting this kind of Rotary math together. And I'm always happy to try and pair newcomers to this with someone who's gone through this exercise before and can help you out. It may all seem very daunting overall, but there is definitely expertise available to help you first timers as you put your global grant applications together. So I've kind of touched on this a little bit, where you can find some help and support. I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that our Rotary.org Learning Center is a really good source of information on all of this stuff. There are a variety of online courses available for any Rotarian to take to help with the application process, particularly for first timers. There are also Rotary Grants officers. There are the cadres, which we haven't really talked about, but these are basically technical experts in various areas. Another old slide here. The expertise available is really, really quite astonishing. I have run through this as quickly as I possibly could because I'd like to get on to talking about the district reporting. So at this point, I'm going to leave the global grants conversation aside for the moment. But as I say, I will happily stay on at the end of this to try and go through any questions that anybody might have. But I do want to keep this relatively on time, and I want to give Kurt the chair at this point to take it away and talk about some of our reporting requirements for the global grant for, sorry, all kinds of grants. So Kurt.
Thank you, Craig. And is everybody still awake yet? And am I holding you up for lunch? That's my first question. So I'll try to be as quick as I can. Next slide, please, Craig. What type of grants need to be reported to the district? It is all the district project grants, district community development grants, undergraduate scholarship grants, district VTT grants, district travel grants, and youth program grants. It is not global grants. Global grants get reported to the Rotary Foundation. Let's keep that very clear. Next slide, please, Craig. All reports for district grants, district project grants will be made using the online Club Runner Grants module. So the same place that you created your grant, applied for your grant, you go back in, open your grant, and that's where you do the reporting. And I'll talk more about that in a bit. Do not fill out the old form and send it to myself, Craig, anybody else, or upload it into as part of your grant report. That is outdated. It all online. The one quirk we've heard about earlier is travel grants. So let's just set those aside. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to talk about some tips about reporting. As soon as you think about applying for the grant, think about how you're going to report on it. Think about what documentation you'll need and what you'll have to collect as you go along to be able to report. Trust me, this is a problem when people finish doing their project. They wait 6 months before they make the report, which you're only not allowed to do that actually, but let's say they do, and it happens all the time. Now you've forgotten what you've done. You've forgotten where you filed all the receipts and invoices and have to go searching for them. Gather them have a plan to gather them as you go along. If you transfer funds to a partner, cancel checks or wire transfer information is required. You have to prove you actually gave the money to the partner. And receipts are required for all expenditures, whether they're made by your club or a partner. A partner can, say you decide you will fund refrigerators for a food bank, and that's what you're going to use the grant for and what you applied for the grant for. The food bank can go out and purchase the refrigerators. They have to provide you with the invoices, the receipts, and then you reimburse them, and you need to, again, cancel check to show you actually paid them. Really important ones, and we see this all the time, funds cannot be committed or spent before the Rotary Foundation approves the district block grant. I know Craig talked about the timeline. Realistically, though, the last 3 years, this has happened in December that TRF has approved the district block grant. Next slide, please. Well, you need to clearly demonstrate that the grant funds have been used for what you've applied for and in the amount stated in the club's application. And it's important that it's arm's length. You can't be paying Rotarians for stuff. I mean, yes, a Rotarian's own business, and yes, you can do business with Rotarians. It is possible to, if you get start the project, or even between when you applied for it and you get acknowledgement that you can, from TRF that the block grant has been approved, you can change what you are buying with the grant, doing with the grant. It does need approval before you do it. You need to request permission to change what you're doing with the grant. And that would go to Craig, to the email that was up earlier, grants@rotary5360.ca. That's correct, isn't it, Craig? Just nod.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. You need to ensure that you follow the rules on what you can and cannot fund for the type of grant. Two very important documents that links can be found on the grant website, and that is the district grant terms and condition document and the Rotary Foundation terms and condition document for district grants. One really important thing, and we've seen it, and something we look for as the grant monitoring team, is that Rotarians and families of Rotarians cannot be the beneficiaries of grant funding from the Rotary Foundation. Keep this in mind, especially regarding youth and scholarship grants. Better definition of exactly what's meant by families is in the Rotary Foundation district grant terms and condition document. They're very specific, and anyway, I won't keeping moving here. It's important that Rotary be recognized for what has been done. So you need in the reporting, there's a spot on the report form, online report form, to say how Rotary is being recognized and how the club has been involved. Craig has already talked about, ensuring more, already talked about the financial management plan. This is really important. It's ensuring that the one person knows where the records are at all times and has access to them. Next, please, Craig. I'm going to talk about some specific examples for district community development grants, for invoices that are paid by the club. If there's a contract, you need to upload it with your report. Invoices from every vendor for every expenditure, and proof of payment for every invoice, such as canceled checks, invoices marked as paid, receipts. We're flexible, but you do need proof of that. Next slide, please, Craig. I mentioned earlier that for community development grants, your partner can pay for items. You need to provide proof that you provided the funds to the partner. Again, canceled checks, wire transfers, any contract between the partner and the vendor, invoices from every vendor for the expenditure, proof of payment by the partner to the vendor, and often, I interjected to one of the questions that, different. Often the funding is for a much larger project, coming back to the food bank. Food bank might be doing an expansion of its facilities. The Rotary grant, district grant was applied for and granted for refrigerators. All you need to do is provide in your report, the proof of funding for the Rotary part of the project, not the entire big project. Next, please, Craig. Undergraduate scholarship grants was talked about briefly. Ideally, we prefer the tuition be paid to an institution, the educational institution. Proof of payment, i.e. a canceled check. The identification of the students' names, ideal on the check, is in the note. What also we're looking for are a tuition request, invoice, bill from the institute, and a letter from the institute of proof of enrollment. Next, Craig. Not preferred, but is allowed, paid to the student. Very similar, you need proof from the college confirmation that the student is currently enrolled in the amount of tuition that they have paid, and proof of payment to the student, i.e. canceled check. Next, please, Craig. Vocational training team grant. Typically, the expenses are paid by the participants ahead of time, such as by themselves, such as airfare, hotels. You need proof of payment of the expenses, invoices, receipts, canceled check from participants, proof of reimbursement to participants, i.e. if the club is reimbursing the participant, the canceled check from the club to the participant. One of the things that is not acceptable is your credit card statement with a line item that says uh, Hotel ABC, $5,000. Well, your grant isn't that much, $2,000. We actually need the invoice from the hotel, from the airline, etc. Craig? Right. Proof of provision of funds. So whether expenses paid for by the partner, again, very similar. You need proof of provision of funds to the partner. Say there's a Rotary Club in the ground or a nonprofit on the ground that is the partner. You have to prove that you paid the partner, giving canceled checks, wire transfer. Again, any contracts. Again, any invoices from every vendor, and pay proof that the partner paid the invoice, i.e. canceled checks, invoices marked paid, receipts. Really important that there is that audit trail of where the money flowed from the district to the club, to the club, to the partners, or to the participants, and proof of payment to the vendor or to the participants. Next slide, Craig. Uh, really repeating what I've said, uh, you need proof of expenditures, proof of the movement of money, and part of for a vocational training team or for a travel grant, sorry, we're now on travel grants. You need to diarize all the meetings you have with the Rotary clubs on the ground, community organizations, community leaders, government officials, who you met on what date and what was discussed. And that can be in an Excel spreadsheet and uploaded with your grant report. Craig? Oop,
Oops, I
skipped
do.
one.
Yeah, yeah. There.
Youth programs. Already mentioned this is one of the most complicated because there are a variety of youth programs, RILA, RIPEN, Youth Exchange, Rotaract, Interact Club startup expenditures. And so there's the most variance for reporting as well. Um, what will be sent out to anybody that's doing a youth program grant related to camps and youth exchange will be a list of a spreadsheet for each of the camps and what is our allowable expenses, and for road exchange, what are allowable expenses, and a reporting spreadsheet template that is used to report on these expenses. That spreadsheet must be filled out and uploaded onto your report. Next, Craig. Uh, Specifically on youth programs, RILA and RIPEN, once again, the grants monitoring team will send out a list of valid expense information to the grant contacts. You need to fill out the spreadsheet for many of these items that are the items that are on the spreadsheet. No receipts or canceled checks are required. Next, RAYAC. Filled out spreadsheet. Again, that spreadsheet needs to be filled out. You will receive an invoice from the district to show that for individuals, participants in RIAC, you need to upload that on your with your report, and a receipt from the RIAC committee that acknowledges that it's being paid. Craig? Youth exchange, again, a list of the valid expense information will be sent to the grant contacts. Fill out that spreadsheet. Some of the items you will need receipts for and need to be submitted along with your report, uploaded on your report. Craig? Rotaract and Interact, again, invoice and receipts for valid expenses. What are valid expenses? Already mentioned the district grants term and condition document does list what are valid expenses for this type of grant. Craig? Due dates for reporting. Well, general rules, 60 days following completion of your project. If you finish your project 6 months after you receive the funds, you should report no later than 2 months after. The absolute longest you can take for reporting is 2 years after approval of the district block grant. Uh, Specific last dates for reporting for money received for the 24-25 year, it's September next year. For the 25-26 grant year, it's September 10th, 2027. For the current grants that you'll be applying for, March 15th, or before March 15th for the March 15th deadline. It all depends when the foundation approves the district block grant. This would be a great help for the report monitoring team. Put a calendar reminder in your own calendar of when you should start your report. Next slide, Craig. How to report. All reports are done on the Club Runner Grants module. The report will be filled out online. The report will be filled out online. Again, we don't want the old report Word document filled out and emailed to somebody or even uploaded. The required documents when you open up your project, your grant application, you'll see a documents tab. It's the same tab you used to upload documents related when you applied for the grant. Create a new folder called Final Report. This is where you upload all your supporting documentation that we've talked about. There's another tab on that when you open up your grant that says Individual Project Report tab. There's a form to fill out, bunch of questions. Then there's financial information, where the funds came from and how they were actually used. This is not the budget. I've seen lots of people fill out this equaling their budget, often filled it out at the same time as the budget. This is how you actually use the funds on this tab. When you're done, you need to press the Submit button on that individual project report tab. That sends an email to the grant monitoring team, who then looks at your report and evaluates whether it's satisfactory or not. If it is, we approve it. If it's not, we'll come back with questions asking for clarification. What you need to do after you press the submit to ensure the email gets sent to you, you'll see another screen come up, and there's a little box that says send an email to the grant administrators. Tick that box, please. Next slide, Craig. Any questions? One of the things that we've gone to, and Craig mentioned that there is a grants at rotary5360.ca. Grant reports at rotary5360.ca is specific for any questions regarding grants, regarding reporting on grants, or it's the email that we will be using when we ask you questions. Ideally, we're still getting used to it. We just had the email set up, and I admit I've forgotten a couple times and used my own personal email. We are moving to this common email for grant reports, so all the grant reports communication is stored in one location. Right. Any questions?
Well, Kirk, what I think I might do is we're now over time, so I would like to just sort of jump through the final few slides here, so that as people need to peel off, they can
Gotcha.
say they got to the end of the presentation, and then I for sure will hang around to address any questions that there might be from the crowd. I still see there's a few from the last section that we hadn't answered. So the last part of this is really
And just
about
to say, I will be hanging around as well until all the
okay.
reporting questions are answered.
Okay, thank you so much, Kurt. Um, I'm just going to make a few comments on the grants website. What I actually think is probably a better approach will be for me to actually put together another session directly related to the grants website. because the application deadline is actually in March, more often than not, we see the people who are working on grant applications begin them after Christmas. So that may be an appropriate time to actually run a session on how to use the grants so website to get your DDF applications in. So I will set that up. But I do want to just mention a couple of things here that the district grant subcommittee, really for all matters grants, we're trying to create a resource on the District 53 website. So if you go to rotary5360.ca, under service, you'll see that there is a menu. We've got underneath it and about in the middle, where is it? Oh, towards the bottom, there's a grants link. There are jumping off points here to the Global Grant Scholarship that um, Hendrik was talking about earlier, as well as for the Peace Fellowship. Those are separate websites. So for those, you can go there, but you'll see that we've got the grants website listed below. So if you go down to the grants link, there's the Global Scholarship one, the Peace Fellowship, and the grants website. Clicking on that will take you to the grants module, is what we call it, which is a piece of Club Runner that allows you to complete your applications for district designated funds. And this is for both of the district project grants of all types. Excuse me, and additionally, the Global Grant DDF for both league clubs and supporting clubs. So it's all there. Uh, by now, we've been doing this for a couple of years, so a lot of people know that when you're putting your grant application together, you start with a project name. We ask that you follow a naming convention. So GGL for the global grants, for example, listing your priorities, P1 through P3. That helps us sort our lists very, very quickly so that we can pull up all of the district project grants that we're looking at as opposed to the global grants. The grant application is really quite straightforward. You'll see on this particular example a couple of entry fields that we look for, including a very basic description of the project and a basic budget. That's enough to get your project application started. In the middle of the page, there's like a mid-page menu where there's a section for the application, there's a section for the budget, and there's a section for documents. Those are really the parts of it that we look for you to complete as you're working on your grant application. If you click on the application section, you actually see there's a general description, a community assessment, sustainability, and implementation plan sections. We ask you to expand those out, and that's actually where you're completing your grant application. Admittedly, this is really quick, but as we have another session later on, we'll actually get into how that all works. There's some questions there that you answer, and that's really all there is to that section. We also look for you to complete a budget with your expected expenses and your sources of funding. This is where we actually look to see how much DDF you're actually asking for. So, the expected expenses will be in the upper section and the expected income will be in the lower section. There's also a documents section that we want you to fill out, and there's a couple of things that we're really looking for in particular. First is the grant approval, the grant application approval form. This is where you're telling us that your club is agreed to and has been bound to contribute the club portion of the project budget, i.e. the portion that you're looking for us to match. So in the case of a district project grant, if your club commits to $2,500 Canadian, you can ask for $7,500 Canadian in the grant. Oftentimes, when I say the grant application is incomplete, it's because this particular form is missing. So these are kind of the things that we're looking for. The other thing that's very important as well for these community development grants is the letter from a cooperating organization. So typically you'll have these two documents. You'll have the club approval form. You'll have the supporting letter from a cooperating organization. we will deem your project application incomplete until we have both of those as a minimum. And I'll just make a couple of closing comments here. So first off, I'll go back to the part of the presentation that Barb started us off with. I just want to remind you of the contacts in the District Resource Network, the various cadres and experts in various areas and the areas that they're responsible for. So I certainly encourage you to work, in addition to working with ourselves, work with Barb's team because we're really joined at the hip to put together the best application for a global grant project. Anything district project related is directly to the district grant subcommittee. So my key takeaways for you here are that the paying attention to the deadlines is essential. We must have your MOU executed and district grant applications complete by that March 15th deadline. I've said it a couple of times, I'll say it again. Monies cannot be committed before the grant applications themselves are approved. Clubs must satisfy all reporting requirements, and we cannot pay you your disbursement from the next year's project grant until all of the reporting requirements from past year's project grants are submitted and complete and accepted by the grants monitoring or the reporting team. So we must have all projects closed off before we can start the next one with the payment. If the rules are not followed, the grant funds must be returned to RI with the district collecting funds on RI's behalf. I know I was talking to someone at one of the breaks about the conditions under which grant funds must be returned. The main one would be that if you've used your grant for something other than what you told us we were going to use it for. So you cannot bait and switch projects. Otherwise, we will come back for you. If you fail to complete all of the project documentation and reporting that is asked for you, that's the other significant condition under which we go and have to ask for the return of funds. Second last slide for you here is just to remember our key dates for the 2026-27 grant year. So the grants qualification seminar, that's today. So I congratulate everybody who stayed to the end, which is most of you. Clubs participating in this webinar have already fulfilled the first step towards qualifying for grants in the 26-27 year. Our district project grant application deadline and opening date, if you will, for the global grant applications is March 15th. We expect the approval of our block grant hopefully in late August. We will work to ensure that we get those funds to you as quickly as possible. I'll just say the more complete your applications are up front, the faster we can turn this around. We spent almost 2.5 months this year chasing down things that were missing from grant applications. So it really is incumbent on all of us to put forth the best possible grant to achieve the fastest possible turnaround. And the district grant should receive and distribute the grant funds in about mid-October. For the current year, we haven't received the funds yet, but I expect that will happen any day now. So we're tracking to about that mid-October deadline. Last slide I've got is just to remind you that we are using a new email address for all matters grants related this year. And I will hang around and Kurt will hang around if there are any questions. There's still about 85 people online. Thank you all for staying to the end. And I just want to thank everybody for participating today. So I think it was a great session, a little bit behind schedule because we had so many interesting questions through the mid-going. Have a great grant season and don't forget, we're always here if you've got any questions or things to ask us about. So thanks all. Have a great day, and I'll hang around for some questions.